What happens when your dream career at the FBI collides with a devastating health diagnosis and you're forced to rebuild everything from scratch? In today's episode of the Nourished CEO podcast, I'm joined by my client and friend, Holly Bertone. Holly's journey from chief of staff in counterintelligence to holistic health coach is nothing short of incredible. She opens up about a major niche pivot in her business, which is something I know many of us can relate to, and she shares the behind the scenes of a recent failed launch that led to a game changing new offer. If you've ever faced a moment in your business where nothing seemed to work no matter how hard you were working, this conversation will leave you feeling seen, inspired, and re energized to your business. From FBI level pattern recognition to emotional eating breakthroughs, Holly's new approach to helping women in midlife is as powerful as it is personal. Let's dive right in. I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Holly Bertone. Welcome to the Nourished CEO podcast, Holly.
Oh, Laura, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to connect with you and all of your listeners.
Yeah, me too. And Holly is one of the clients I've worked with that is like the interview queen. I swear I see you on like a new interview all the time. And it's something that I love because I feel like so many people just shy away from this kind of thing. And it's been so cool to see you just totally dive in everything from like shows that you're on with podcasts all the way to remind me, you were on a TEDx stage at one point.
Not TEDx, but it was a similar salon style stage.
Oh, gotcha. Was
Yeah.
that
At
remind me, was it
MIT.
MIT? I was like, I wanted to say Harvard. I knew it was up in that region. So yes,
Yes.
that's really cool. That takes a
Yeah.
lot of guts
And
to.
thanks for acknowledging that too, because I really do like to get out on podcast and get the word out. And so
Mhm.
yeah, thanks for recognizing that.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there. And, I'm sure there's a lot of times where you're putting yourself out and you're not getting the stage or getting the response. So just the fact that you're on so many shows tells me that you're putting a lot of focus and energy into it. So it's definitely a thing that I recommend because I personally think podcast interviews are a really great way to reach new audience without having to constantly be putting out new content on social media or blogging or anything like that. So that's a little bit of an aside. I just love that Holly's out there and showing up on my feed with a new interview. Like it seems like every other week. So, but anyway, we brought Holly on the show today because she has gone through something recently that I think if you are in business long enough, you'll probably go through it. I went through it myself, and I'm probably going to go through it again at some point, and that is having a major niche pivot. So, Holly, just for some level of backstory, I would love to just have the audience know where you've come from to get to the point that you are today. Because I feel like from my memory, there had been some changes in the niche. It's not like you've just been on this like single track topic for years and then all of a sudden you changed. I think there was some exploration going on. So, talk us through your journey with nailing down who you wanted to work with and how you wanted to serve them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So let's jump into that. But before I do, I actually just want to say, Laura, how much I really admire all the work that you do. I mean, not just this podcast, but the coaching and, being in your program for what was it, a year or two. So just everything that you do to really just help our community and, help all of us really nourish ourselves. I mean, like you said, from that place of not just our business and our bodies, and especially as, a lot of health coaches and fitness coaches and dietitians and nutritionists. And to everyone listening, I really just want to encourage you to give Laura a shout out. Go to Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating and review because that's really going to help her to reach more people. I left a 5-star rating review on Apple. You can see my name when you scroll down. So I just want to make sure that everyone listening does that as well because that's going to really mean a lot to me as a guest.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I think my health journey started probably, or journey, I should say, into health coaching started probably very similar to, I would say, probably what, 70, 80% of individuals out there, and that we went through a thing. And then we're like, I need to fix me. And then we're like, hey, this is kind of cool. I want to go help others too. So that was my journey because I actually I was rising through the ranks of my career at the FBI, and I was the chief of staff for counterintelligence. And so I was, I think, 37 or 38 when I was promoted, which was if anyone's familiar with that culture, I was female, not an agent, and very young. So that was unheard of. And I was an outsider. I actually came in as a contractor before they promoted me in as chief of staff. So it was completely unheard of. So my career was everything, just for context. It was a dream since I was a little girl to work for the FBI. I was there. I was doing what I absolutely loved. Like I was in heaven. And throughout those years at the FBI, I went through, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, went through the traditional surgery, chemo, radiation. And I'm actually getting ready. I was just thinking, I was getting ready in, I think, another month or two. It's going to be my 15-year survivorversary. So I've got a really big survivorversary coming up. And then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's. So that just over the years just flattened me to the point where I actually had to resign from the FBI because my health was not okay. So I became a health coach just because going to the doctors, getting a pill, the traditional route, it wasn't working. And I had, no even thought about coaching at that point. I just was like, I want to just see, even if I can get 10 or 15% better, just make some improvements. So that was my path to this career field. And I first started blogging and then I started working with clients part-time. So I was married at the time, I was working part-time, didn't really have to worry about the money. And I wanted to work with those clients who were most like me. So predominantly, either breast cancer survivors or autoimmune and, really in that chronic illness kind of capacity. And what I realized was that I was not, I loved that clientele because I was her just a few years ago, but it wasn't where I needed to be. So pivot number one was to go back to my roots as a holistic health coach, as a certified holistic health coach. And that's where I built my signature program. That's where I know you and I started to work together. And that's when I started working. I got divorced and started transitioning from part-time coaching to full-time coaching. So full-time coaching, creating the training program, the group coaching program, it was a higher ticket offer. And I absolutely loved this offer because as a holistic health coach, I felt like at the time I had this identity around I have to give them everything. They need everything. Like I can't be a holistic health coach and not talk about this or not talk about that. Like, let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about movement. Let's talk about getting outside. Like we have all these things that we have to talk about. And I felt like that identity was driving my program. So I loved the topic and I loved my clients, but it felt like concrete. And I can't explain how you can be so passionate about something that it just felt so heavy. And the lead up to the big pivot was this past fall. I put together an entire runway. I was going to do a 2-part January launch because we all know January is our Super Bowl. So I
Mhm.
was like, I'm going to get in early, 1st of January, get those early action takers, those early New Year's resolutioners. And then I'm going to relaunch 4 weeks later to get those people that may have decided to put it off a little bit, or maybe they tried something and then failed. They're ready to jump back in while the momentum is still there. So I am in my head, I'm like, this is a 2-part launch. And
Mhm.
I got it queued up. I did the runway. I did all the things. And I mean, and it was a lot of hours to put this launch together. And I was doing a challenge. So it was a whole week long and I was going live every day. So the launch started in January and I had 600 women sign up, which was a big number for me. And I was so excited and I'm doing the math in my head and, and I had a Facebook group and I'm going live. And I mean, they were excited and they were in the chats on the live and they were jumping up on the screen and they were sharing and, and they're in the Facebook group. And we just had so much momentum all week long. And I'm excited. I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm really going to be able to take this program to the next level. And cart closed. And I had 0 sales. not one, not two, zero sales out of 600 women, out of an entire group of enthusiastic and excited and motivated and engaged women. Zero sales. And that to me was just deflating. I gave myself 48 hours because, you know what it's like. It's not just a failed launch. This was a bomb.com, right? So I gave myself 2 days. I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit around and mope and just be in my feelings for 2 days. And then I'm going to have to, after that, I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to figure this out. And that's what I did was in that time, I just sat around, I moped around, I didn't shower, I didn't talk to anyone, I just watched TV and just moped. And I let myself feel the feelings. And then that next day, and I was like, okay, it's go time. What does this mean? And everything that kept coming up was almost like a relief. Like this was supposed to be. And I am a true believer that you either get the thing you want or you get the lesson that you need to take you to the next step to get the thing you want. So I'm okay with that, but I had to be in those feelings. So I was like, okay, this is something that I have poured my heart and soul into, but what's next?
Mhm.
Like, what does this look like? And I was like, well, I like the higher ticket offer because you don't have to sell as many to make the money.
Mhm.
But the lower ticket offer, you can sell more. It's easier to sell. You just have to sell at volume. So I said, well, what would it look like to create a lower ticket offer? And then it was, what would it look like? Like, what would that even look like? Like, what would that lower, if I did this, what would this look like? And then I said, what is that first step? So I went back into my program, back into the big program. And I looked at all of the modules and I really just sat with them for a while and just was like, okay, what do women in midlife who want to lose weight, like what do they actually need? And I wasn't even at the point of what's going to set me apart at this point. I was just like, what do they need? And that's when I was like, you know what? I can take the first 10 lessons out of this program and repackage it and just focus on emotional eating. And I was like, I think that can work. So I did the monetize before you make it. I ran a beta launch. I was like, okay, let's just see if this even has legs before and I had the content created. I would just have to package it differently. So it was still going to be a lot of work, even though the lessons were technically created. So I was like, okay, let's just see if this has legs. Let's see if we can get anyone in. So I put it out there and I actually had a pretty decent response, like more than I was expecting. I was like, oh, okay, this has some legs now. So now I'm like, I need to fulfill. So I had this group of women and I told them, I gave them a month. So this was the beginning of February. And I gave them 1 month. I said, you're going to get your content the beginning of March. So that meant the entire month of February, I am scrambling to get the resume. I don't want to just throw something against the wall and say, here's your content. Like,
Mhm.
I want it to be good. I want it to be not better than good. I want it to be excellent. I want them to get the results. I want them to feel good about their purchase.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to just pull some content out and repurpose it. Like I wanted to create it as a standalone product. So I took the entire month of February and did the whole hustle and grind thing. It was probably 12, 15-hour days, 7 days a week. Like it was brutal. But on the other side of it, they got in and they started getting results. And what was really cool about it was originally I was calling it the Break Emotional Eating Accelerator, but they kept saying over and over again, it was that 10-day mark. It was a little before, some a little later, but it was like that right at that 10-day mark. And I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. Holly, I just put the fork down. Like I ate the cookie, but then the next one I just put down. Or, I had the pretzels and the next one I just put that. Or I had the piece of cake and then I just put it down. Like they're actually putting the fork down. And I was like, this is it. This is it. It's the Break Emotional Eating Accelerator. And then kind of that tagline is you can do it in just 10 days. So that's where I started to focus. And then, of course, all of the content. So this is where are we at now? February, March. So this is the beginning of March. So now I'm like, okay, I got this program. I need to fill it. Right? I need to start putting, getting the word out there, putting stuff on social media, getting emails, all the things. So that is literally, this was the March, April, May, like just the last 2 months or so. This is what I've been focusing on. And it's crazy how, I mean, we don't like the hustle. We don't like the long hours, but sometimes you got to put them in. I'm not
Mhm.
going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes you got to put those long hours in. But to be in that place where, like, you go from that 600 women in the failed launch to actually filling the program, getting results, and then really starting. And I'm at the place now. I just ran, what were we at? May. I just ran the May numbers and I'm like, we're ready to scale. Like this has legs. We are ready to scale.
Nice.
So I feel really good about where this is. And I feel really just awesome about the results that my clients are getting inside of the program too.
That's awesome. And it's funny, I feel like as much as that could be called a niche pivot, I do think you really just figured out which part of the bigger offer was what people really wanted.
Yeah.
It's not like you went back to 0 and had no idea what you were talking about or no idea who the person was. It was like you already knew who you wanted to serve and how you wanted to serve them, but it sounded like the first offer was just this huge thing, and maybe it felt really big for your audience too, right? Like, if you're trying to promise this huge outcome, and they're like, "That sounds amazing," but then they don't think it's possible for them to get that result, that can lead to them not buying either, even if they're like,
Yeah.
"That sounds like exactly what I want, but is that even possible?" Versus the the overeating or the emotional eating piece and the 10-day number, I love that. That just feels so much more doable for people, and I feel like regardless of the price point, like, that just is, I would say, an easier yes for somebody to say, "Yes, I can do that, and I can get that outcome," and it just feels more accessible. So, I love that you went back to what you were selling and who you were selling it to and really thinking about that person and what she was really wanting, as opposed to just saying, "Everything's broken, nothing's working." Because I had my own failed launch, similar, not exactly the same, but, like, probably results-wise about the same because I spent money on ads that then 100% of that money was what the results of the program cover or the launch covered, so it was a $0 profit, and then I had to deliver on a 12-week program, so that was fun, $0 of profit for that, but similar experience where it was like, I know what I'm doing to sell, and I know that this can work, but something about the way I'm doing this is not aligned. It's not the right offer. It's not the right, promise, whatever it is, to really be able to look at that objectively and not let your emotions just totally derail any sort of learning opportunity from something that, having been through it myself, I thought my business was gonna be ending at that point. I definitely understand how that feels, and I know that it's easy for people to take that in a dark path where it's like, "This is hopeless, I'm gonna give up." But I love that I mean, you've been through so much in your life that you've had to overcome, so it doesn't surprise me that much, but just being able to say, "Okay, I went through that really crappy experience. What is this showing me, or what can I learn from this that then can help me move forward?" So I think that's a really important lesson for anyone who's listening to apply to their business, and easier said than done, but really essential to be able to do that whenever something doesn't work the way you were hoping or even at all in some circumstances.
And Laura, shout out to you because I did something that I got the courage to do in your program. And I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's kind of scary. It's just getting scrappy.
Mhm.
And after I figured out that I wanted to do that pivot, I wanted to do the new program, the first people I reached out to were the ones who were in the launch that were the most active and vocal and engaged. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Here's the price point. You're going to get in, you're going to get a lower price point, and, you're not going to get it for a month, but, would you want to go in? You want to try it out and then, give me some feedback on it. So I literally just got scrappy
Mhm.
and reached out individually. And, not just sending out emails, but reaching out individually. I was like, that actually worked.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like sometimes people wanna, and this is not you, but I know a lot of people that just wanna kinda skip the whole, boots on the ground, really having conversations with people approach to selling, but I feel like now more than ever, it's so important to be willing to do that because the market has shifted so much. People's financial situations have shifted. Their belief in what's possible for themselves has shifted. So we really have to be willing to have those conversations with people and not be afraid of them because that's, as you experienced, sometimes the best direction you can get for your business is just by having those
Yeah.
conversations.
And it turned out perfectly because, you look at it from the Venn diagram of where's my expertise? What am I good at? What do I actually love doing? Where is the market? Like what's
Hmm.
good for the market? And then most importantly, where are my clients going to get results?
Hmm.
And this just happened to be the perfect one in the middle.
I love that. So let's talk about what else may have contributed to some shifts in this angle because I know, you've been through so much with your health journey. I mean, I've seen the videos that you've put up on Instagram. It's really pretty incredible. Honestly, sometimes when you tell that story about having worked for the FBI, I'm like, are you sure this sounds like a different like one of those like multiverse timelines where there's like FBI Holly that I'm like, no, that's not real. That can't be real. So, you've obviously overcome a lot in your life, a lot of health stuff that, most people when they go through that kind of thing, they don't bounce back to the point where I mean, I would say, from what I've seen, it seems like you're substantially healthier now than you even were before those things happened. So, not only did you bounce back, but you, like, totally bounced through the ceiling as far as, just improving your own health is concerned, and I know that you were still dealing with some challenges that informed where you could take this new direction. So, I'm gonna open it up to whatever you wanna share. I know you've been open about it on other shows, on Instagram, that kind of thing. Talk me through your own personal evolution with the food and health piece,
Yeah.
recently especially, and how that informed this change.
Yeah. So I I was really nervous originally to talk about weight loss, just weight loss in general. I just had such a resistance to it. And then to niche that word.
Um, we know what you're saying. That word is,
Yeah.
multi-pronounced.
Niche down even further to emotional eating. And I kept the secret for probably about a month or so while I was starting to get the word out. And then I realized that me keeping my big scary secret was not serving me and it wasn't serving my clients.
Mhm.
And, I don't, and I know like I share on Instagram all the time, like, oh, here's me bald from cancer or like laying on the couch from autoimmune disease, like, tubes up my nose. Like I have those pictures and I really could care less sharing. But this secret was really big and really scary to share. And it took me like, I mean, it was heart beating out of my chest, scary to share this big secret. And that was that I had struggled with emotional eating for over 40 years from the time that I was little until even going through my divorce. So even until, just a couple of years ago. And it was, as I think, especially as health coaches, because image is so important in our profession. We're working with our clients to help them get healthier. And we have these internal or external standards that we have to be healthy. We have to look a certain part. We have to act a certain part. And I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of secrets. And so it was just taking those bold steps to actually say, I'm a recovered emotional eater of over 40 years because I felt like if I were to say that, no one's going to want to buy my product because why would they? I am just a fraud. I'm someone who's claiming to be healthy, but has this, big secret behind closed doors that, I eat 3 pints of pop or not popcorn. I used to anyway, big bowls of popcorn and then 3 pints of ice cream every single weekend. Like that was normal for me. And I didn't think anything of it because as a quote unquote health coach, Monday through Friday, completely disciplined,
Mhm.
I mean, 100% disciplined. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to treat myself. And then it was also, being on the, and not that weight is a thing. I mean, I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 110 pounds. And I mean, I'm 5'1", so 110 is nothing on my frame. But like weight is just weight. But the fact that I was trending on the higher side of what a healthy weight was for me. So looking at that, and I was like, yeah, thanks. I need to change this.
Mhm.
So just to number one, from my own perspective, to really dial in, my own health over the last couple of years and to be able to, kind of take that extra weight off, especially at 53, like in midlife, like things just aren't as friendly anymore to our bodies. We have to work a little harder.
Mhm.
And number one was doing that, but then number two, actually admitting that I did that.
Mhm.
And I thought I would be shunned. I thought I would be, kicked out of the proverbial health coach community. I don't even know. Like, I thought everyone would hate me. And it turns out just the complete opposite is the more I started sharing about my story, not just of my past of emotional eating, but emotional eating as a health coach, keeping this secret.
Mhm.
I've had so many other health coaches reach out to me privately and say, yeah, me too.
Mhm.
And to me, it's not just the women who I serve, but to be able to serve those who also, work with the men and the women and, to help other people get healthy, to help those coaches get healthier too.
How do you feel like that affected? Because going back to what I said before about you being one of the people I work with who's the most prolific about getting in front of new audiences. We work with people who have very large social media followings, and I feel like it's a different story when you're doing your own audience versus going out there and putting yourself in front of brand new audiences. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know if they're even going to like you because theoretically, if somebody follows you, you hope. I've definitely had moments where I was like, "Why are you following me?" But the people who follow you generally like you. You know, want the best for you, that kind of thing, versus getting out on other people's platforms. It's a different beast having done it myself. Do you think this was affecting how you were showing up and communicating your expertise? Or do you feel like, oh, it wasn't necessarily affecting that, but I just didn't feel good about, keeping the secret from people?
I am so glad you asked that question because absolutely. I felt like up until this point, I was playing small. I felt like I was playing in the sandbox. Like you get whatever certification you get. We all have our certification. You get the certification, and it's like we're kind of told we have to play in the sandbox of what the certification gave us. Like we're not allowed to differentiate from the rules. So
Mhm.
somehow there's rules that we were given, and we have to. That's how we have to teach and coach and be. And what I realized was that those rules weren't serving me and those rules weren't serving my clients. So that was kind of scary too, was to take those principles and foundations, but say, you know what? I really want to put my own spin on this. And looking back at the program that I had, the higher ticket program, even looking back before that, everything that I had ever touched always had a piece of that FBI counterintelligence, always had a little piece of that. Let's go back to the root cause. Let's start looking at patterns. I love patterns. I've been a pattern girl since I was a little girl. I was a big data nerd in the FBI. We looked at counterintelligence patterns. What are those patterns? What are those triggers? How can we stay ahead of the threat? And I realized those were the themes that kept coming up in everything that I had done year after year after year as a health coach. So I'm like, you know what? There's a million of us out there. So, and probably some more. So, how do I set myself apart? Not just saying that I'm a recovered emotional eater, but how do I actually set myself apart? And it wasn't that I was embarrassed. I mean, I was forthcoming. I was under an NDA with the FBI for the first 7 years. So after that, and even before then, I was like, yeah, I work for one of those 3-letter federal government agencies they make TV shows about. And that's all that I said. But after that, I was pretty shy about saying that I work there because I was like, well, who cares? Or it has nothing to do with my coaching. So then it was, okay, I have this skill set. I'm a recovered emotional eater. And the way that I coach is using the brain science of neuroplasticity. So I'm like, what does this have in common? How can I actually package this message into something that I can share to audiences who don't know me, where it actually makes sense, where they're like, oh, I get it.
Mhm.
And really just talking about it, and the line that I use is, you've got espionage and spies, you've got cake day at the office. A threat is a threat. And to be able to combine those years of FBI experience in counterintelligence and pattern analysis and threat reduction, the food monsters that I had to overcome personally, and then the brain science of neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
And when I share it from that perspective and I share my framework, they're like, oh, I get it. Like it just makes sense.
Mhm.
But I also not just had to get over tripping over myself and being scared to death to talk about being a recovered emotional eater, but then also feeling like, is anyone even going to resonate with the FBI thing? Is that weird? Is it braggy? Is it like, are they going to hate me for like all of these things that, go through my head? So that was another, kind of place that I had to trip over myself to get to on the other side, was to be like, no, like this is a very cohesive message that I can share that number one makes sense. It's not going to hit everyone, but it makes
Mhm.
sense. And those who are my people are my people. But it also to be able to show up on social media, to pitch a podcast and, to be able to lead with this, to really differentiate myself. And I started actually using the word emotional forensics because that's really what I do. It's
Mhm.
not even emotional fluency. It's one step further. It's looking at those patterns. I call it emotional forensics. And to be able to really start leaning in to that messaging to set myself apart.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, just imagining you as chief of staff at the FBI, it's like it does seem like, wow, that must have been a very,
I
very
don't look the part.
and this I feel like that has to be such a particular set of skills to even get to that particular job, right? I mean, I know that those agencies are not just hiring anybody left and right? Like there's probably a lot of competition for those positions. You're looking for a particular type of person. You have to be able to demonstrate skills and be the best fit for the job because, it's the United States. It's there, we don't mess around with the people in the positions of leadership. So all of that to say, I could totally see how that background, even though on the surface it might seem it doesn't have anything to do with health, I think the way that you are combining it with what you do for the emotional eating is really cool. Cause like you said, it's emotional eating isn't some, completely new topic that no one's ever talked about. And I think a lot of people in the online health space feel like they have to have that level of distinction where it's like, I have to talk about something that nobody's ever talked about before in order to get attention in this crowded market. I hope that you guys are hearing Holly's explanation that the particular problem that she solves is not one that has no competition. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of competitors in that particular niche. But being able to bring in this one element that I feel like the likelihood that any of your competitors have worked for the FBI is probably pretty low. And I do think for the right person, it would be really attractive to know that your coach had been through that type of training, that type of job situation, that type of, mental demand, whatever else might have been going on in that position. I just feel like how you've brought those things together and really looked for a way to make them make sense. And it's not just you're not just saying, "Oh, well, I used to work for the FBI, so that's why you should trust me on emotional eating." It's you're really looking for a logical and compelling story that you can tell people about why your background in the FBI actually affects how you approach emotional eating, which is really cool. And I think everybody should be looking for places in their life that they can pull maybe even things that seem unconnected to their health expertise. Where can you pull from your background, your experience, that kind of thing to be able to inform how you talk about your topic because it will make you stand out and it will be memorable and it will definitely get you opportunities to broaden your audience because it's not just the same old thing that everybody's used to hearing. So I love that you've done that because I just think, I mean, it's such a big part of who you are and what you've wanted to do with your life even as a kid. So it's great that you're able to keep that as part of what you do. And it's not just like, oh, that was like another lifetime that doesn't influence what I do at all.
Well,
Oh,
the
go
best
ahead.
part the best part about it too is that, how I was saying the FBI really was my dream job. I mean, I didn't wake up as a kid and say, I want to be an emotional eating coach. I woke up, I was 17. I was like, I want to work for the FBI. Like that's what had said since I was 17 years old. But at the same time, this really is my dream because I get to use all of the skills from just the pattern analysis that I've been obsessed with my entire life, everything that I got to do with the FBI, and I get to help women overcome emotional eating. Like to me, that's like you wake up with just so much love and happiness and gratitude and joy in my heart every single day because I get to do what I absolutely love to do.
I love that. Now, I don't know if this is like, we'll have to have you on for another episode if this will take too long, but is there an elevator pitch version where you can explain at least a little bit about how you combine those two things to help your clients? Because I'm very curious, and I bet a lot of people listening are curious about how that worked out for you to create that framework. Is that something that are you able to condense into a few minutes of an explanation or even just a little bit? Even if it's a teaser and people need to go communicate with you to learn the whole thing.
Yeah, so the framework is called See It, Stop It, Shift It. And the way that I explain it is our brain is, we're basically creating a path in the woods. So we've got this old path in the woods that we go down that we see food, you see the cupcakes on the counter, you're like, oh my God, I have to eat those cupcakes. There are no other options on the table. And it's the path that food equals comfort. So our brain has this one path in the woods that it goes down. So See It, Stop It, Shift It in like the 60-second version is about awareness, really just observing what is going on and then see it, stop it. That's where we pull in counterintelligence tactics to actually stop those cravings before the dopamine kicks in. It's like half of a second. It's really quick. And then see it, stop it, shift it is the third part. And that's really rewiring the brain so that instead of going down the old path, it's now going down the new shiny path where, you can see the cupcakes on the table or see the cookies on the table and you're like, oh, they're just cookies or, oh, they're just cupcakes. Like, I don't have to eat them. And really, it's just that place of brain rewiring, but then using the pattern analysis in the see it stage, and then the counterintelligence tactics in the stop it stage, and then the neuroplasticity in the shift it stage.
Well, look at that. You were able to do it in a very short time frame. I love that. And I'm sure there's other things that you can share about that, but I just love I guess we wouldn't call that an acronym. It's alliteration. That is
Alliteration,
yeah, the
yes.
alliteration. It's very memorable and now I want to know more about exactly how that works. That's really cool.
That's the high level overview.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it definitely makes sense and it's catchy. And that's always the best part about marketing is when something's memorable and it also makes sense, right? So you did a great job with that. So if anyone wants to either hear more about what you do, if they want to connect with you because they're resonating with being a health coach and having that history or maybe current struggle of emotional eating, or if they just want to learn more about your expertise and how you're weaving all of this really cool, diverse background into one powerful offer, where can they connect with you?
Yeah. So, and especially like you said, like if someone listening really is resonating, like they're nodding and they're like, yeah, I'm a health coach, but I'm not in control around food. And, maybe even feeling a little bit of shame. I mean, I felt like just volumes of shame. So it's totally normal and it's totally okay. And if you're feeling that, you're like, yeah, I'm stress eating and the snacking and so first of all, just come say hello on Instagram and it's at Holly.Bertone, Bertone. And just say hello. And discretion is my love language. So everything will stay completely private. But also, I do have a free gift. It's called the Emotional Eating Tactical Blueprint. And it's got two parts to it. So the first part is an actual psychological profile. It is an emotional eating psychological profile so you can actually understand what's driving your triggers. And then the second part is actually kind of cool. It's called the Crime Scene Files Emotional Eating Edition. So if you're someone who gets totally geeked out by true crime podcasts or the CSI shows, this is how I basically, created it's like a little mini training, and I created it around that true crime style. And this is where we go more on the tactical side to start talking about the tools to intercept those triggers. So if you want the free gift, the emotional eating tactical blueprint, again, just say hello on Instagram at holly.bertone and then DM me the word blueprint, and I will get it sent right over to you.
I just love this theme, like the branding and the theme around the FBI stuff. It's so like, I don't know, it's just so creative and interesting. And I don't watch those kind of shows. I think the closest I ever came was watching the show called Only Murders in the Building, which is like
Oh,
a spoof on that kind of thing where they're making a crime podcast. But I know so many people who are obsessed with that kind of stuff. So I can imagine that they would really, really love what you're doing with it to make it applicable to them, but also fun. So that's really cool. And then if somebody's interested in working with you, what should they do? Is that the same path they should take? Is there a different thing you'd suggest that they do?
yeah, we can talk about either private coaching or the Break Emotional Eating Accelerator. So again, yeah, just hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM, and yeah, we can definitely chat.
I love it. Well, Holly, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us all about the stuff you've been going through in really kind of a recent time frame. I think we're at like 6, 7 months since you've been dealing with all of this
Yeah.
just change and evolution in your business. So I can't wait to hear how this new offer takes off. And like I said, I really enjoyed hearing about the way that you've weaved in your background, your passion for something that could theoretically be completely irrelevant to health and really making it something that not only helps people get better results, but also is just so you, which is really cool. And I love it. So thanks for sharing all of that with us.
Oh, thanks so much, Laura.
Awesome. And we'll see you guys here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and it brought you value, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute to leave a review over on iTunes. Your feedback not only helps more amazing coaches and practitioners like you find the show, it also helps me keep creating the kind of content that you want more of. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, search for the Nourished CEO podcast, scroll down and tap that write a review button. It only takes a minute and it means the world to me. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.